Been a while, hasn't it? Well, I'm back as another People Make NNE. I'm off to have a conversation that a year ago, all I would have had to have done was walk over the road. And our conversation would have been right there. But as it is, I'm travelling slightly outside of the circuit to Ilkeston today. And I'm going to go and have a conversation with Reverend Sue Edwards. Now, Sue has been a familiar face to Nottingham North and Nottingham East and Nottingham North East over the last few years and beyond, because she's got roots in this area as well. But currently her role is a little bit different, though she's still officially part of our circuit. So I'm going to go and have a chat and a catch up with my former neighbour, and we'll see what she's got to say, shall we? Okay, should we get started?
Go on then.
Okay, so as I've just told you in the car, assuming that this conversation doesn't go on for like 3 hours and I have to edit seriously, but as I've just told you in the car, I've come to Deepest Darkest Ilkeston to come and meet with Sue. So we're going to have a conversation, we're going to have a chat for the next part of our People Make NNE series. So let's get started, shall we?
Right, okay.
Sue, what is your full name with those embarrassing bits?
Susan Elaine Edwards.
Susan Elaine Edwards.
That's the name I was born with.
Where did the Elaine come from?
I don't know, honestly. My brother and sister both have middle names.
Yep.
And they were often referred to by their middle names,
Okay.
as like nicknames, I suppose. I often used to get Susie Q or Susie Wong or something like that. Elaine never got used unless I was in trouble, and then you get the full name.
Yeah. My parents used to reel out all of the names when I was in trouble, so I heard them quite a lot, to be fair.
Yeah.
Okay, so Susan Elaine, how old are you?
56.
56. Okay.
There you go.
That's not too old.
That's not too old.
It's
no.
experienced enough to have seen a little bit.
Just a little bit of life.
Yeah, but enough to come that it's it's still young, really.
I think I've taken in quite a lot of life in those 56 years.
Okay.
So hopefully it slows down a bit now, really.
Taking in enough, I'll just sit back and enjoy it.
Yeah,
now.
enjoy the rest of it. Yeah. Okay.
Fair enough. So I've explained that your role has slightly changed and it's a little bit complicated. But what is your role here in the circuit, the district? What do you do?
Well, I'm still stationed in Nottingham North East because I work in Nottingham. I work for NUH NHS Trust, which means me working at Queen's Medical and Nottingham City Hospitals as a healthcare chaplain.
Okay, so you fulfil that chaplaincy role, but with your collar on.
Yes.
And you're still stationed kind of with us in Nottingham North East because we're obviously the best circuit.
Well, of course.
We're really close, and the Methodist Church says if you're still a minister, you have to be stationed somewhere, even if that's not as a church minister.
Yeah, I'm still stationed in Nottingham North East. I'm not that far away, very close to Orsworth and Nuttall. Yeah. And there seemed no reason for me to change circuits because I was working in Nottingham. So, so that all fitted in okay. And in the directory and minutes of conference, I'm stationed to Nottingham North East, but within a role not responsible for the church.
Okay.
So
well, you're a very welcome and handy person to still have as part of the circuit. So we're not going to want to get rid of you anytime soon.
No, it's good to meet with everybody as well. So,
yes, brilliant. So you don't have any direct responsibility for any churches.
No.
You say you split your time between Queens and City as a chaplain. But how long have you been in this area?
In Ilkeston
in Nottingham North East, sort of.
Well, I only arrived in August 2017.
Okay.
So not that long ago, really. But I've been elsewhere before that, So came with responsibility of Hucknall Central, Eastside, the church on Rise Park and Bestwood Park. And that all changed. So, last year, but it was in 2019 I started to explore it a bit more, and I could talk about that probably in the vocation.
Yeah, we can come on to that
Yeah.
in a little bit. How long have you been a Methodist minister?
2010.
2010, so you're
Yes.
11 years in.
Yes, so that was first in Chester and Stoke district, so Stoke-on-Trent, Stoke South circuit, and then moved to Trent and Dove. But it was in 2012 that I was ordained at one of the furthest places away from Stoke. So it was quite interesting, inviting people to go there, because that year conference was at Plymouth.
Right.
And my ordination took place at Camborne Methodist Church.
Wow, there we go.
So it was really lovely though, and we had a very warm welcome. So it was good.
Great.
Great day.
So 2010 then, and you're 56, so let's go back 11 years, 45. It gives you a few years between leaving school and becoming a minister.
Yes.
What did you do in those years?
Oh, lots of things. There's a long list.
Okay, well, you can sum it up with a ballpark if you like.
A bit of experience in there. I started work as an office junior for a firm of solicitors.
Okay.
And I stayed with them, becoming a legal secretary for quite some years. I also worked for the council, a relief receptionist, and then I've worked in a firm of stationers.
Okay.
As a sales assistant.
Yeah.
I've also been a dinner lady.
So there's a whole load of different things. It wasn't a simple...
Echo, which was now called teaching assistants.
Okay, yeah.
And then went to work in a pharmacy as a pharmacy sales assistant, so I had to learn knowledge about the medicines, etc. And then became a pastoral worker for Erewash Valley Circuit.
Okay.
And then
And then
into
to ministership and chaplaincy,
yes,
and
everything else.
whatever comes next.
Yeah, exactly. So a bit of everything, really.
Okay, but that experience helps.
Yeah, I was quite surprised how much I have used in circuit ministry. It's, you know, even the dinner lady, which is really good for like school assemblies, because
Yeah.
I had a reception class, and I often did story time with
Okay.
all the voices, so they would leave me reading the story while they prepared lessons, etc. You know, so that, and in even the solicitors, knowing about documents and
Yeah.
how to process them and what to look for, and so yeah, a wide variety.
Brilliant.
And all been used.
Great.
Yeah.
So as we eat together, you've got hot chocolate for me here that is...
I think it's still hot.
Still hot, kind of. What have we got to eat?
Well, there's a selection for you, Mark, because I can't eat chocolate cake anymore, which is really, really sad.
Oh dear.
So now my choice is always for lemon cake. I couldn't find any lemon drizzle, but I can smell the lemon as I'm taking the serviette off. So we have lemon cake,
Great.
and then we have these lovely biscuits,
Okay.
the Lotus Biscoff biscuits, which I absolutely love. And I do carry them around in my bag in case I need something sweet.
A little bit of sugar.
A
Yeah.
little bit of sugar. So there's a choice, and I often find hairdressers are really good if they provide these biscuits.
The better the biscuit,
Exactly.
the better the hair.
So please help
Better.
yourself.
Excellent. I will do. So we'll dive in, shall we?
Okay, thank you.
So quick fire round.
Yep.
Really quick questions, though the answers are never as quick because I always find something to mention.
Okay.
You've just said chocolate cake you're not allowed to eat, and
No.
I sense the pain in that.
Yes.
But what is your favourite flavour of cake?
So my favourite flavour is probably lemon. Lemon drizzle especially.
Yeah.
But my mum always made a really good date and walnut loaf,
Okay.
and I used to love that. And I really ought to try and make it myself, really. But you know, I've done a bit of baking while I've been off,
Yeah.
just to get back into it.
Okay.
Tea
or coffee? We're drinking hot chocolate.
Well,
There's always a well.
it depends. So I have different times of day for tea and coffee.
Okay.
So it tends to be tea in the morning,
Right.
Then probably mid-morning a coffee, and then goes back on to tea again late in the afternoon.
Right.
However, my hot chocolate is my treat drink.
Okay.
So I don't have a lot of chocolatey stuff now, but I class that as it's as good as having the cake. Not quite.
So we're doubling up.
So
this
yeah,
morning.
but I always have decaf, so I have a lot of fruit teas and things. So yeah, it's a mixture really. So depends what time of day it is
Okay.
and what I feel like having.
Fair enough. That's fair enough. What about sport? Do you like sport to play, to watch, to?
I've never really been very good at sport, so I prefer to watch.
Okay. What sort of things do you like watching?
I watch football. I don't understand a lot of sport, but I understand football.
Okay. Yeah. Now you
um,
say you watch football.
Yes,
I know what team you support,
you do.
and I'm not entirely sure that's football.
Really? I don't see you can say that.
Who is it?
Derby County.
Okay, we'll let people send their emails.
If you're a Derby fan, you're a Derby fan till you die. Basically, that's it. There's no changeover. It's Derby through and through, and it's also family. Family have been brought up on
Okay.
it, so I can go to football matches and see my cousins.
Right.
And my sister goes. I'm not going at the moment because I can't sit for long, but I plan to be back, hopefully by October.
Okay. So from sport, we'll
Right.
go to films.
Right, a few, I'm afraid. I have got an all-time favourite, which is West Side Story.
Okay.
Again, that's a bit of a family favourite as well. But I have other films that I go and watch that I like to watch. And I remember a few years ago, it was Boxing Day, and I went to see a particular film with my sister's husband, my niece's partner, and one or two other gentlemen. And we watched Star Wars.
Okay.
So I quite like Star Wars. I didn't used to, but I do now. Star Wars, Marvel films, I like the Black Panther. I like Bond films. And then I like those feel-good films where you don't really have to concentrate, but you can sing all the way through, like Mamma Mia and, Dirty Dancing and that sort of thing. So I have a wide range of films that I like.
That is the very definition of eclectic.
There you go.
Yeah, that is a lot of different ones. There.
Definitely.
So between Derby County, going to the cinema to watch all these different films, how do you have time for things like music?
Well, I grew up on music. So again, I think that's, family as well. So we've always grown up on music. We've always watched, like Sound of Music every Christmas and that sort of thing.
Sorry.
So grew up on musicals and things. So I do like a lot of those. And but again, it's quite varied. My record collection, yes, I do still have one. My claim to fame is having the original Now album, but
Okay.
So my varied songs are from Queen. I've even got a couple of Judas Priest and Led Zeppelin.
Okay.
And then ABBA, Take That, Michael Bublé, David Essex. So a wide range, wide range, variety. You see, that's what it is.
So with that eclectic music, I know that one of your hobbies is singing.
Yeah.
I know that you really enjoy singing when you can. And you're a member of a choir? Are you a member of a choir?
Well, it's quite funny really, because I'm sort of in between, because things have been quite unusual this year for me. But when the COVID started, I joined the Great British Chorus with Gareth Malone.
Yeah.
I should have shown you my T-shirt, shouldn't I? And I did a lot of singing, and one of the things I looked forward to was doing that every night when I got home from work. Just kept me going, and I continued my singing lessons as well online with Sarah, I'm quite enjoying that. So ended up doing my first Zoom concert last year.
Okay, very good.
Singing The Rose. And then I think there's supposed to be a concert sometime this year. And I did sort of partly join Tour Card, and it was easier for me to join online because I've got to limit what I'm doing at the moment just to get fit, really. So I did, through the last few months, join Tour Card, but only online.
Yeah, to see what
so
it looks like.
Not quite done it yet, but getting there.
Okay. Do you have any other hobbies?
I do. Play the piano as well. I enjoy walking, and since we've moved here, there's a canal at the bottom of the street. I tend to walk down the canal, which is really good. And I come that way home from work occasionally sometimes. I like going to the theatre, cinema. I like going out to meet friends and family and eating cake. Those sort of things.
Anywhere there's people and cake.
Yeah, I do some reading as well, but probably not as often as I should, I think.
Wow.
But,
who's setting these standards?
Yeah, I used to do more when I was younger.
Okay.
But I do drawing as well. So I've been doing some drawing, and recently, because I needed things to do while I was off, I started having a go at painting stones.
Okay.
So these are some that I've done, which I was going to show you later, but I'll show you now. So we've got King of Kings that I've done. These are my first ones. Do you know who that is?
Only because I'm educated, not because I'm old. I think that's a Moomin.
It is. That's Moomin Troll. And then I've done a Derby one as well.
Okay.
So it's not very good. I need to do another one of that.
Well, I'll take a photo of those and
that's
show
fine.
those to people. So that's your random item.
That's my random item.
Was the drawing and the painting your hidden talent, or do you have a different hidden talent?
No, because I did it at school, and then I think I've sort of forgot to do it. I used to do it for the kids a lot.
Right.
I used to always be drawing things for the girls as they were growing up, and I still do that, and I've done it for my nieces and nephews as well. So not really a hidden talent, but I probably don't put it out there very often.
Yeah.
My hidden talent is that I can pick up one or two musical instruments and have a go and get a noise out of them.
Okay.
So
like pick up a piano.
No, I can't pick up a piano. Play the piano anyway. I play the organ. I play the guitar. And
new information.
I learnt to play the violin at school, but I gave it up because I spent most of my breaks and lunchtime doing various things like choir and instruments, and I'd play the recorder. I think everybody can play the recorder, can't they?
Three Blind Mice and Amazing Grace.
And Wombles. And then Chloe bought a couple of instruments home. So she brought home a cello.
Okay.
So I had a go at that and got a noise out of it and played a bit of a tune. And I'm still working on the flute. Wow. I can't get much noise out of the flute at the moment. But I'm aiming to teach myself.
Okay.
So I just like to pick them up and have a go.
Yeah. What would you say is your greatest achievement?
I think my girls are my greatest achievement.
There's two of them.
Yes, they're twins.
So they're the same age.
They're the same age, and one is a couple of minutes older than the other.
Okay. And, it's
and they will tell you who's the eldest and who's the youngest. So yeah, it's quite funny that. But yeah, I think they are, because we were on our own for quite a while. There was just us three, and so we're quite close. They're still okay to be seen with me. You know, even though when I get embarrassing, they will still go to the pictures with me and holidays and things like that. Yeah. And they're not afraid to ring me up when they need me.
Great.
Because they live in Stoke now.
Yeah.
So that was my first place as a minister.
Okay.
And they stayed there.
That's where they sit down their roots.
Yeah. But also, I've never really been academic, I suppose. I passed my 11 plus. I think I was the last year to do that.
Okay.
And I think it was probably because it was multiple choice. I was always good at school, infants and juniors. When it got to senior school, it was a lot harder. And I found out later, only when I was at Queen's Ecumenical College, that I was actually dyslexic.
Okay, so something that would have been helpful to know early
Early on, but was never picked up because I've always been good at spelling.
Right.
So, but there's different strains of it. So, that was something that I found out, and it made sense. But I got a degree. So from only leaving school with 1 O level,
right. Yeah.
which I didn't really do well at exams, I got a degree, and I'm quite proud of that, really. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, and you know, I just remember one or two ministers along the line have said about education and things, and that they weren't particularly clever, but you know, God gets them through.
Yeah.
And I was certain that God was in this. You know, from struggling at school to, you know, not passing any exams and then getting a degree. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Do you have any tenuous links to a celebrity?
Wow. I've met a few celebrities over the years. Just working in the shop, really, served one or two. You know, when they've gone out, we go, that was such and such. But when I was younger, I used to go ice skating a lot during the summer with my friends. And you had to get off the ice at certain points to let the ones that were doing it properly have a go. And my friends would take me to the middle of the ice rink, and I couldn't get back. And I bumped into this couple called Torval and Dean, and I literally bumped into them because I was like clambering off the ice trying to get off. And then a few weeks later, I saw them on the telly, on the news, of these up-and-coming, rising, you know, ice skaters. And I went, I literally bumped into them. It could have been so much worse, couldn't it?
You could have
It
stopped
kind of
their
knocks
whole
them
career.
over and stopped their career.
Wow. Yeah. Different universe where there's no Torval and Dean.
Exactly.
Wow.
So that's it, really.
Excellent. And something about you that nobody knows, or very few people know, that you're willing to admit.
There's some things that you probably didn't ought to know. So I'll do the ones that I can tell you. You probably won't know this because I think you're too young, but there used to be a program, a kids program years ago called the Wooden Tops.
Okay.
And there was a dog called Spotty Dog.
Right.
And I could do a brilliant impression of him, but I'm not going to today.
Like, I wouldn't have anything to compare it to because that's not in my
You'll have to
knowledge.
Google it.
I'll Google it and then I'll
Like
imagine you doing an impression.
Okay.
Or maybe I'll just impose the voice over the top. Just pretend
It's
that
just
you're
the
doing it.
move.
Oh, it's
just
the move. It's not the voice.
Yeah, it doesn't make a noise. It's the move of the wooden dog.
Oh, that's even more disappointing then. We could have got you sort of gambling around. Is it like a puppet?
It's like puppet. They were all wooden puppets.
Okay.
And yeah.
We're going to get letters about me not knowing about the Wooden Tops now.
I knew
Complaints
I
from
knew
the
you
fans.
wouldn't know.
But it's okay. Ben won't know either, so it's all right.
Okay.
And Ben's our main viewer.
Right.
Let's stretch our legs.
Okay,
and then
thank
we'll
you.
come back for
And I'll
some
finish
more.
my hot chocolate.
So these questions are about your faith journey, about
Yeah.
why you claim Christianity as your faith, why you claim Methodism as your church, and your way of expressing that faith. So would you like to tell us more about sort of how you came to this
Right,
point?
okay. Christianity, I came into it really with my mum and dad, I suppose. They're both Christians. We grew up a Christian family. It wasn't forced on us or anything. We were allowed to make the decision when we got to teenagers of what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
But the Christian faith just says it all, really, for me. It's about following Christ in however way you can, to do the best that you can do for him. So it's about representing Christ as well to others, showing the Christian faith in your life, not just being able to read Bible passages or anything like that, but to live it out. So it makes sense to me. So I do get questions about it a lot, actually. And I've always found that I've been able to share about my faith and what it means to me having Christ there, and how on earth would I have managed to get through certain things in my life without Christ being there. So if I can send that through to others about knowing that Christ is there and he loves me, then that's what it's all about. And it doesn't really need to be complicated. In fact, I think children probably relate to Christ more than adults do, because we try and put things in the way. Yeah. But yeah, so
it's
simple
been a part
words,
of your
really.
life since you were
since
very young.
Very young.
But actively your choice.
Yeah,
since
it was
a teenager.
my choice as a teenager to carry on going to Sunday school and church and being part of the youth group. But I can honestly say it wasn't until a lot later that I actually started to question things for myself. When I was 16, I became a member of the Methodist Church, and I think that was how it was used to be done. You know, we'll get the kids now, they're growing up, before they leave, and see if they want to become church members. That sounds quite awful, really, doesn't it? But I felt it was a bit like that, really. But some of us made that decision that we would become church members, and some didn't, and that was fine, because in the end it's about you and God anyway. And so I started to question it a little bit more at 16, but again it was very simple of what I believed, but just knowing that I wanted to follow Christ in whatever way that I could. It wasn't until much later, it was a Good Friday service, and it was Ilkeston Area Church Council of Churches. I can't quite remember the name, but it was known as IAC anyway. And they did this walk of witness, where they portrayed the last few days of Christ's life. So I remember stood on the marketplace, so I must have been, late 30s. And it was quite bizarre. The sky actually turned black. It was just very strange. And the guy who was portraying Jesus on the cross, it just felt so real. And I stood and I cried, and I'm like, what? Why did they put Jesus on the cross? It was probably the first time I actually asked that question, right. And then realised it was myself. And then I started to really explore a bit more what that was all about, and then things started to snowball from that with my journey as a minister. And I can't remember what part of this conversation that comes into, but
we'll roll it all into one.
But then things started to happen really quickly, and it all happened. Yeah.
So you mentioned in there that you became a member of the Methodist Church at 16. Were your parents Methodist?
No.
Okay, so when
only one was.
Okay, so one was a Methodist.
My mum was Methodist. My dad was Church of England.
Okay.
And when they got married, they decided that they should go to one church, so they went to the Methodist Church. But actually, the history of my mum's family was that they were involved in the Pentecostal years ago.
Right, so lots of different influences
I know.
there.
So, but anyway, that was the church that they both went to in the end for some reason or another. We'll let the plane go over, shall we? I think we're on the flight path. But anyway, my dad always said he was Church of England till the day he died. He was a choir boy,
right.
And he was a church organist, and then he became the church organist at the Methodist Church sort of later on in life. My mum used to do a lot of singing in the church and in the choir, but it was their influence that I became a member in the Methodist Church. But the reason being is and I didn't find this out till much later, of why the Methodist Church, because I actually didn't know really any roots.
Okay.
I'd heard of Wesley, didn't know who he was, you know. Then I was given this Ladybird book about John Wesley. It's all you need to know, really. But just the theology, obviously the Born in song, it was known that Methodists sing their theology, and the priesthood of all believers is quite important to me, which is mentioned in the Bible in 1 Peter. But it was about everybody working together, so not just about the minister, presbyter or deacon at the front. It was about everybody working together, and I feel that that's quite important. So I think they've got it right in that sense. So that meant a lot to me, because that's how I work. I work as a team, really, rather than on my own.
Absolutely. So that kind of sums up why the Methodist Church. It tells us where you claimed this faith from.
Yeah.
Let's pick it up again though,
Okay.
from that Good Friday.
Right.
Because you said it started snowballing from there.
Yeah.
And presumably that snowball led to the snowman
My
that we have
calling.
now.
Yeah.
Okay. So fill us in then.
Okay. In 1999, I started to get invited to things like prayer events and all things of Christianity festivals that I hadn't really thought about going to before, because I always thought it was a bit, you know, happy clappy, wave your hands in the air, and that wasn't me. Yeah. And then I did an Alpha course with a friend, and I actually went as her support, and I got more out of it because it was our conversations on the way home.
Right.
And then, and this just goes to show that some church meetings can be really good. It was a general church meeting, which were actually known as annual church meetings back then, in the year 2000. And we were discussing the vision of the church and the way forward. And I got asked to speak, and I didn't know that I was going to speak, but the minister said, oh, such and such is going to speak, then such and such, and then Sue. So I'm looking round for the other Sue that might be speaking, and realised actually for the first time I was the only Sue. And I thought, well, what am I going to say? Exactly. So I went to the front and started to talk, and I didn't know what I was saying. And so I asked afterwards, and I was talking about, it was about the young people in the church, and I'm glad I asked, because it made a lot of sense. So then we got into little groups, and somebody told me that I should be a Methodist minister, and I just laughed. And then on the way home, we were walking home with another couple, and one of them said it as well. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute. I says, oh, somebody else has just said that. And I says, what on earth would I want to do that for? And then I was talking to somebody on the phone about challenges. They'd rang me up to ask me something. We were talking about challenges, and I went, oh yeah, tell me about it. And they said, why, what's happened? And I told them, and they said, well, you know the answer, don't you? And I said, no. And they said, yes, you do. you need to pray about it. And I seriously listened and prayed about it. And then the following week, I went to speak to my minister, Paul, and said, I think I need to speak to you. And he said, yes, tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. And I'm like, no, not that quickly. And it was a calling to be a minister. And when I said what had happened, I suddenly felt really at peace. And I started to explore a bit more. And I used to do something called foundation training, which I think somebody else has mentioned in one of these talks. So I did that, and along the way I'd got to explore more, whether it was presbyter or deacon I don't know if everybody knows the difference
We've
in
got a
them,
video
but you get
about
in
it,
there,
but yeah.
right. So I went on a diaconate weekend, and I felt at the end of this weekend that I wasn't called to be a deacon. It was a presbyter. And whilst I was sat waiting to tell them what it was I'd decided, there was a picture on the wall in the diaconate house of a chaplain. And I knew at that moment it was to be a chaplain, but I knew I had to be ordained.
Okay.
So that's where that came from. And then it was a long journey, which I'm not sure whether you've got time for all that, but I'll cut it short. I candidated twice.
Right.
And the first time I candidated, I was on my own with the girls. I was holding down 2 jobs. And Wes Blakey, who was the chair of district at the time, said to me, "We really feel that you're called, but we don't think it's yet.
Yeah.
We want you to go away and explore some more, and we're going to support you." And the other thing was that I wasn't very good at answering questions. It always came with a story, because
Okay.
I'm a story person. Yeah. And I needed to learn to answer questions a bit more precise.
Just get to the point.
Get to the point, yeah, exactly. So, bizarrely, and hadn't known this was going to happen, but there was a post for a pastoral worker in Erewash Valley, and I wasn't going to reply. And then somebody told me that I should, and I did. That would give me the experience. So I applied, and I also went to MTech, which is East Midlands Ministry Training College, where I met Andrew Charlesworth. But I started first in 2003, but my dad had just died, and I never really got going. And so they gave me the year off, and off local preaching as well. And then when I started again, it was with the group that Andrew was in. We were known as the Loopy Methodists.
Obviously.
Yeah, it was a Methodist loop year, learning all about Methodism. And of course that's when I candidated not long after everybody else, got a not yet, and then candidated again. And I've never done anything straightforward. Still doing that now. I had my district meeting before the circuit one.
Okay.
So I had to pretend that I didn't know that they'd already said yes to me. And it was a tough day, because my mum had actually just died, and they said, did I want to go away and come back another time? And my superintendent, who was Tony at the time, he just said, no, the time's right now. And I got through. Went off to Connection, and got called back to the panel, which I thought that meant that was it. But it was like, where were they going to send me? Because I'd been working in the church. Yeah. I'd been at MTech for so many years. Yeah. And I was getting on a bit. And where we're going to put me, because the girls being teenagers and they were about to start GCSEs. Yeah. So they sent me to Queen's for a year, which is where I met Jenny Jones.
Okay.
And that was it. And then I was only there for 1 year. And now I know why, because at the end of that year, we'd just had the Queen's Leavers service. And so on my way sort of thing, I was diagnosed with cancer. And I thought, well, it's not going to happen now then, is it? You know? There was always a bit of not yet all the way through the journey. It had like, no, not yet, and then it would rush forward, and then there was another not yet. So they said, we're going to move you to Stoke. We're going to get you there. You won't be working. I was off for 9 months, although doing little bits at a time, and then I had my welcome service in the June, and then just started full time in Stoke. So it's been a bit of a journey along the way. It's never been straightforward.
And then I guess most recently then becomes this realisation of that poster that you saw in the diaconal office or wherever it was that said chaplaincy.
Yeah.
And now you're doing that as a minister. You are chaplaining.
Yes. I'm going to just show you a couple of books. Whilst I was at MTech, one of the tutors, we were talking about styles of leadership. Here comes Buttons. And I thought I was the shepherd, I really thought I was the shepherd. And I was told I was the wounded healer. And I was quite offended because I wasn't really sure what it meant. But in a book by Henry Nouwen called The Wounded Healer, I started to find out what that was about. And that's been my journey, really. So my experience of life, of the things that I've been through to get to this stage, have given me knowledge and empathy to be alongside people. And that's where I feel I am. And I suppose all the way through ordained ministry, that's where I've been. Yeah. It's about being alongside people and being there at the different times of life. And that's where I am now in chaplaincy.
Great. If I were asked to ask you to sum up your faith, like your outworking of faith, why you do what you do, with a passage or a verse or a story from the Bible,
right? What would you point me towards? What would you share? I'd actually chosen 3, but I'm not going to give you them all.
Because you're a storyteller.
I'm not going to give you them all. I'm a great believer in story, and that's how Jesus worked. Was all about story. But what I'm just going to read to you actually is a Bible passage that my first mentor, I had 3 mentors and 2 tutors when I was doing my local preachers course, and my first mentor gave me this passage, and it's Psalm 37 verse 24, and it says, "Though we stumble, we shall not fall headlong, for the Lord holds us by the hand." And I feel that is still appropriate today, because it's certainly not been easy. And I think knowing that God's got you, whatever, which is also going to lead into my hymn, if that's okay.
Go for it. Yeah, let's keep going.
These last 2 years of being in the chaplaincy, I've felt such a privilege of being there. But I've also suffered with health again. So I got COVID at the end of January, which left me with a pain, which eventually got worse, so that I had to have surgery for a hernia, which is all due down to my bowel cancer surgery. But I hit rock bottom whilst I was in hospital. And because I'd been watching the football, I'd left my phone on and got pinged. So I had to self-isolate in hospital, and I felt it was the loneliest place. And whilst I was there, I didn't actually know whether I'd get back up again. That was really difficult. So it had affected me not only physically, but mentally and spiritually. I wasn't quite sure where I was, whether I would actually start back to work. I couldn't read the Bible, I couldn't pray or anything like that. But I'm a believer in that God puts people alongside you. And several people contacted me that week, you including in those people. And I was able to share a little bit with some of you. But when I got home, I was just like watching Netflix all the time, or Homes Under the Hammer, like everybody does,
I really must get into Homes.
Or Escape to the Country. It's what everybody wants to do. And I was watching this programme called Anne with an E, which is basically a new adaptation of Anne of Green Gables, which was something that I loved when I was younger. And there was one particular episode where this lady of great faith had died, and they sang this hymn, and it's written by Horatio Spafford, and I know you've had it before because somebody else has chosen it.
That's okay.
But that song, just watching it on the telly, was just how God works, isn't it? I cried through that hymn because I actually knew what it meant, and then I got a phone call from somebody else who said, "Been thinking about you a lot this week. Would you like a phone call?" And we had a video call on the Saturday, and I just poured out everything to him. And it just meant so lot because Horatio Spafford, he first lost his son. He then lost his businesses through the Great Chicago Fire, and then he lost his 4 daughters who drowned, and it was him and his wife left through all that. And he wrote this hymn. You know, and it means so much. And I only heard that hymn the first time a few years ago. Somebody had sung it as a solo, and it really stuck with me. Although I've got loads and loads of favourite hymns, as you can imagine, because I always say to people, you know, sorry to be depressing to folks, but when I die, we're gonna have about 12 hymns, you know. But this is the one that keeps coming back to me at certain times when I most need it. So it is well with my soul.
We'll have a listen. Great. So Horatio Spafford, and It Is Well, and kind of that, almost that hymn for this season, I guess.
Definitely.
To bring you, like you say, from those depths back into a place where, you know, embarking back into being in hospitals and beside those people who find themselves in those similar positions.
Exactly.
knowing you and having heard sort of some of this story as you've told it today, I imagine that's what gets you excited.
Yeah.
Is being with people.
With people, yeah.
What is it about it that...
I'm not a person to be on my own, really. I always said, whenever I put in a stationing profile, it was also always about, I like to be with people, not stuck behind the desk, you know, that sort of thing. And I enjoy being with people. It's a privilege. It's a real privilege to walk alongside somebody on their journey, whatever that is. Because as a chaplain, you're with people at the beginning of life, where people just want to thank God for the arrival of their new child. But you're also there at the other stage where people are ill, or like for this year, they've not been able to have family visitors. They get quite lonely, and from day to day, things can be different for them. No day is the same when you're a patient in hospital. And then we're there at the end of life as well, not only for the patient, but for the family and the staff, because it's really hard on staff and has been this last couple of years. But that privilege of being alongside all of them through all their journeys is just something that I know that's where God's called me to. And I've eventually got there after all these years. It's only taken 21 years.
Wow, yeah. But so that's where the passion is. That's where you get your energy and your excitement of being able to support people.
Yeah.
What things in this role you fulfill kind of sap that energy? What makes it more difficult to do, or do you kind of really kind of have to dig deep for the reserves to be able to do?
Still the desk work. Believe it or not, there's still desk work, there's still computer work. I don't see myself as being very good at it, although I'm told I'm quite organised, but I think that's probably from being a legal secretary.
Yeah.
But it's something that doesn't really interest me that much. I can't get a lot from it, and I know that you're supposed to. So those sort of things really. I'm just trying to log on to things that just take a while. There's certain training that you've got to do, and you know you've got to do it every so many months, you know, to keep up to date with everything. But sometimes it feels a bit of a chore because it can take a while to get on there, or it can be an hour where you'd rather be doing something else.
It doesn't necessarily make it easy to do.
No.
Okay,
but yeah. I know it's worthwhile in the end. But yeah, so it's still that behind the desk. Yeah.
I'm with you on that. So as you do your chaplaincy, my imagining is that whilst it is an energising thing to be with people, that it could be a really draining thing as well. It could be something that obviously you see so much, you celebrate with people, but you mourn with people.
Yeah.
How do you keep yourself grounded and keep yourself growing in your faith as you do that? How do you not get despondent, and how do you learn more about God and yourself?
Firstly, it's about taking some time out and space, and we do what we call reflective practice. It's about how maybe a visit's gone or something's happened that day that you'd not thought would affect you, but it has. Taking those times out to just think about it and what could you have done different, where was God in that, did you actually get it totally wrong? And all those sort of things. But we also have, every day, we have what we call a catch-up and morning reflection. And so that is a time to share with others of what's happening for us or around the hospital, and then handing it over. And because we're a multi-faith chaplaincy, it might not necessarily be prayer. It might be reflecting on poem or words or music. So we do that as a team, but then for yourself, it's having that prayer time and taking time out just to be with God before you actually just rush in and go and do it, because the last thing you need to be doing when you go and visiting somebody is to actually rush. And I'm learning that. It's taken a while. I'm learning it, not to rush, just to take time through it. But one of the things that I've found recently, when I was struggling with my prayer life, was somebody brought me to the attention of Lectio 365, which I've now got an app on my phone, and I've sorted out apps. But it's really helpful, and there's a morning and evening prayer. And I can honestly say I probably don't always do the evening prayer, but I make sure I do the morning when I get up. So I'm not really up, I'm like lying in bed, and and I click on my app. But that's my like 10 minutes there, and then just time to reflect on what those words were saying to me and how helpful they've been. So I've been doing that, but also with people. And it's been harder to do these last couple of years, but I want to get back to going on like retreats and places that I can just go. I really wanted to go to Iona during my sabbatical. My sabbatical didn't happen. I'm hoping to go there in the next year or so, but just to find those places where, those thin places, you know, where heaven and earth meet. And there is God, just being in that quietness. And I can honestly say I never thought I would appreciate quietness and stillness, because I don't like to be on my own. But there's those times that you just really need just to be and be still.
I think in those moments you take the stillness and the silence as a gift.
Yeah.
Rather than perhaps in the daily it becomes a burden or a punishment or a chore or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that.
But being intentional about it, you're choosing it and to use it as a gift. And what have you learnt recently about God that you think we'd all value or we'd all get something out of?
Right, okay.
Knowing
that he's there. You might not think he's there, and you might be going through the worst time that you think you're going through, and feeling quite alone. But he's there, and just carries us through at the times that we need carrying. When we can't do things for ourselves, to contact God is still there anyway. And I think that's really useful to know. I've seen people over the years that have lost their faith for a short time and can't understand why that suddenly happened. But life is life. But God is there even so. So it's not that he's turned his back on us, it's just that we just can't contact him in the way that we would like. And so he has ways of contacting us.
Yeah. What would you say would be your hope or your vision, or where do you see Nottingham North East as a circuit growing and living out the kingdom of God?
Right. That's quite interesting, because I've not really been there for a while, and I've only seen the leadership team, well, ministerial leadership team recently. But the feeling that I get just from listening to a few of the interviews, that it's about growing God's people and being there that other people can see. So it's not only in word, it's in action. And when other people can see that, then hopefully they will see Christ working amongst them. So that's my vision for you.
That's great. As we finish then, can you pray for us?
Yes, I will do.
Thank you.
Holy God, as we just sit here with the noises in the stillness around us, the creaky gate, the flagpole, traffic in the distance, leaves blowing around. We are reminded that you are here, you're with us always. And as the church, you want to see your people grow closer to you. And this has been a time of exploring and connecting with you in different ways. But now is the time to come together as people, the people who are the church. Help us all to listen to you more closely. Help us to follow you in ways that are unexpected. And may your Holy Spirit continue to guide us and anoint us for the work that you would like us all to do. So be with us now in this time and forevermore. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Marc. I'm afraid I don't like getting my hands dirty. That's why I use a cake fork.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So